There's little dispute around the idea that music serves as an excellent conduit to express one's creativity. A few simple notes played together in a repeating sequence can, at times, convey one's thoughts much more eloquently than even a wordy paragraph. Think of the scenario when you're walking down the street and you suddenly hear the theme from the movie Jaws playing in the background. An honest reaction could perhaps be feelings of fear, uneasiness, or even impending danger. It's amazing how just two repeating notes can invoke such a complex array of emotions in us. However, music, in all its power, is as much a creative force for musicians as it is for listeners and connoisseurs, albeit in very different ways. As a music maker, these creative outlets exist as opportunities to shape your sound, its intensity, and the feelings that they could invoke in other people. As a music consumer, listening to well composed songs turn you into something like a human capacitor, charged with emotion and ready to dissipate your energy into an outlet of your choice, whether it be running wild with your imagination, picking up a pen to sketch out what you feel, or simply just dancing. For the longest time, I found it difficult to have my inner music maker and music consumer get along. Growing up listening to classics and standards from the yesteryears, I sort of felt a disconnect between the music that I like to make and the music of our time. While the music consumer in me tried their best to reach out and coax the music maker out of their shell, there was little success to be seen. It wasn't until my explorations into the world of underground electronic music that these two identities in me agreed to set their differences aside and unite in pursuit of a whole new world of musical prospects. The journey since has been magical, to say the least. Over the last few years DJing for my friends and larger crowds, my job has remained the same: to curate and play a selection of music in the hope that audience members start feeling like those human capacitors and dance their hearts out to dissipate all the energy and emotion welling up inside of them.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Closet Writer Chronicles. I'm your host Sangeeta, aka the Moody Marshmallow. You just heard our guest for today, Maniak Vennimalai. Maniak is a mechanical engineering graduate who worked in IT for a couple of years. He then moved on to the field of machine learning, working with IIT Madras professors for a while. Maniak is now in the process of acquiring two master's degrees, one based in the US from Georgia Tech and another one based in the UK from Southampton. He moonlights as Dr. Maniak, a DJ that aims to serve snappy, uplifting, and non-conventional electronic music. Tune in to hear about his journey with engineering and music. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Closet Writer Chronicles. This week I have with me Maniak Vennimalai, or as I've known as Manika Vasagam Vennimalai, also better known as Dr. Maniak these days. Welcome to the show, Manik. It's so good to have you here.
Hey Sangeeta, how's it going? Really nice to, be speaking with you after a long time, I would say.
Yeah, I don't think we've spoken since school or college at this point. So it's crazy that we're catching up on a podcast.
Yeah, pretty interesting for sure.
Yeah, but I mentioned in your intro that, you're an engineer, you're also a DJ, and, and I've known you since school, obviously, but I think the first thing I really want to ask you is, what is your earliest memory of being creative?
Well, I would say that I guess from the time I was a kid, possibly earlier than what I remember now, but what I do remember now is that my brothers and I, we would go like take the pens that our uncle would keep aside to do the crossword. We'd open up the newspaper and just start defacing it. There'd be like little doodles and cartoons we draw, like among like in the pages itself. And whenever we see like some like a picture of somebody, there's no way that picture is going to go by without some horns, sunglasses, a mustache, or something like that. So I could say that that was at least what I remember as me, as my earliest memory of trying to express a little something that I was feeling in my head. Uh, but yeah, I mean that sort of continued uh, right through school,
Mm-hmm.
when whenever I felt like zoning out from a class, like a lecture, or even like in tuition, when you're like, man, I've already studied this stuff. I would just flip my book over to the last couple of pages, and it's something that my brother did as well. And we just like keep doodling like small little drawings and cartoons and stuff like that. So I could say that, yeah, it was just it was the drawing as such, which was the earliest expressions of creativity for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's really interesting. But, would you say writing has been a part of that? And the reason I'm asking you this question is because I know you were very particular about language in school and you used to write really well. I remember all those essays from English classes, which teachers would just randomly pull up, and yours would inevitably be one somehow or
Yeah.
the other. So, has that ever played a role for you in terms of creative expression?
So I would say that I definitely liked language as like especially like well thought out, like nicely structured bits of speech. I've just found them appealing. But I don't know. I think it was sometime early in school, or maybe around like fifth standard, sixth standard, something like that, where I was really like put off from the act of writing, or that is physically writing, simply because I found the task of holding a pen and writing stuff down in a piece of paper to be extremely tedious. I guess this was sort of uh, reaffirmed by the numerous teachers. That's you, Geeta ma'am, if you're listening, that my handwriting was god awful, and that I'm going to be like, like almost like uh, I'm probably going to have to like sacrifice like, like good academics and stuff like that if I don't improve my handwriting. And I don't know. I just said, okay, you know what? If my handwriting is this bad, I'm probably just going to not. I'm just going to write as little as possible. So that's why I never did my homework or any of those submissions back in school. And it was only till like only much later, I would say about 3 to 4 years ago, when I was when I started becoming way more comfortable typing stuff out in the computer. That's when I started journaling and like taking notes rigorously of like, and like a lot of different educational content that I consume. And I wouldn't say it's writing in the same vein as like somebody who writes poetry or stories or stuff like that. But I do really enjoy documenting and doing so in a way that I feel uh, facilitates like easy understanding and recall of what I've read.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting to hear. So I've never really journaled. I did start gratitude journaling earlier this year, and that has
Mm,
somehow been very helpful for me, at least. So I can definitely
yeah,
see that being a big part for like a lot of people, actually, because I don't know, journaling just
yeah,
seems to be very therapeutic for many people.
for sure, for sure.
Um, but yeah, having said that, what kind of content do you enjoy, consuming in terms of, say, like, books you've grown up with? It could be, it could be writing, but it could also just be like movies, music, anything that's really you think has influenced your creative side, so to speak.
Okay. Mm, well, I would say that like right now, I don't consume as much like text content. So maybe it's just me being lazy, putting it off, But I've really been gravitating more towards like long form audio or video uh, content. So, for example, I listen to a decent amount of podcasts. Uh, we have the Lex Friedman, the artificial intelligence podcast. Then there's this nice little, like, I think it's like a news it's like a yeah, it's a day current affairs news podcast called The Morning Brew.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another one which I was listening to a while ago, and in fact, like I would strongly recommend that to anyone who's just up for like a light intro into like different historical facts. So it's called Build for Tomorrow, and it was formerly called the Pessimist's Archive. So this podcast as such spoke about how for inventions that you would have thought like historically would have been just so readily accepted by the public
Mm-hmm.
were in fact they inspired a lot of like controversy and like how could you do this, how can this, like like how people were skeptical of the internet back in the day. Well, it turns out people were skeptical of bicycles, people were skeptical of umbrellas, so many of these small things that you would have thought the world would have just said yes, give this to me right now. No, it was met with skepticism, and I think that this podcast is really interesting. You guys should definitely, I mean, you should definitely check it out. Then I watch a lot of YouTube as well. So you might have seen this guy Vsauce. So he makes like crazy videos. Like I don't know how his stream of ideas even come together, but like you can just like go through his channel and look at the video titles, and there will be almost like no link between the things that he speaks about. But once you're in to his channel, oh, he's so coherent, that guy. I also watch a lot of these engineering slash builder YouTubers. So there's this
Oh,
guy Mark Rober. He does I think only 12 videos a year, something like that, one video per month. But man, these are crazy, spectacular videos. He was I think a NASA ex NASA scientist or something engineer, and now he's just making YouTube videos. There's another guy called Matt from this channel DIY Perks. Oh, he is a master craftsman and also just a spectacular engineer. So I would say any of these are like on the cutting edge of engineering, like making
mm-hmm.
particle accelerators and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's I've just found it really nice to watch these guys' content. Uh, there's another guy called the Action Lab. I'm sure his shorts and stuff are pretty popular now. What does he do? So he just basically designs these very comprehensive experiments about the simplest things, like what would happen if you if you put a balloon filled with liquid nitrogen into a vacuum chamber or something along those lines. And it's just that I really like the way he designs his experiments and makes sure that there's very little left to the imagination in terms of these scenarios. And the final one, which I would really strongly recommend, is another like a scientist turned content creator called his channel's called Stuff Made Here. This guy is a real polymath. He's a computer scientist, he's a mechanical engineer, he's a physicist. I mean, you name it, he probably has a tool set for these domains. Like he makes crazy things. Like we're talking about like uh, there was this thing that he built where it was an automated basketball hoop which was on a two-axis robot arm, where from wherever you throw, like you can be the worst, you can literally stand with your eyes blindfolded, back turned to the hoop, and just fling it randomly. The hoop uses computer vision to like detect the position of the ball and will make sure that you never miss a basket.
Oh, wow.
And I just yeah, I thought that guy was crazy. And a lot of his videos are very high caliber. So yeah,
No, those are some really great recommendations, and I didn't know a lot of them. So I know I'll definitely be checking some of those out for sure. So thank you for that list. Um, but also, having said that, kind of coming more into, because again, this is from your introduction, since you said that you do moonlight as a DJ, as Dr. Maniac, how
Mhm.
did you get into music and, decide to become a DJ? What is the origin story, so to speak, of Dr. Maniac? Because I know you have dabbled in music before. I know you learned saxophone for a while, and I
Yeah,
think you learned guitar as well, if I'm not mistaken. Or
yeah.
you, yeah. So how did that happen? Your journey with music.
I think it was teenage rebellion that pushed me towards learning the guitar back in seventh standard. I just wanted to be like, a rock star or whatever, be in a band. So it was, yeah. So I think you guys might, I mean, people from Chennai back in the day would remember Unwind Center in Kilpok.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a pretty
Yeah.
popular, and they had branches throughout the city. So that's when I went. That's when I went. I joined like the guitar classes in, yes, seventh or eighth standard, and I continued to play the guitar for like right through school. There were a couple of these cultural events that me and a few of our friends have played for. Uh, but let me, yeah. So I was still in the process of discovering what I truly like wanted from music. And I think it was after getting into college where you're just suddenly smacked by a huge amount of workload, that
Mm-hmm.
okay, these things tend to like just take a bit of a backseat. I guess it was in my second year, after I had a bit of time to stabilize. I said, okay, I want to do something with music again. And it was, I think I was just getting into like old school funk, jazz, R&B, soul, these kinds of genres. And I thought, okay, I want to pick something that can work with this, and I want to get a fresh start, like. So I knew that there was this guy, my like a college mate of mine, who played the saxophone, and I started speaking. His name is Basant, and in fact, he's part of Benny Dayal's band. He's still touring. I think he tours with them regularly. Might even be on a tour right now with them. So Basant and I got talking, and I told him that hey, I want to do this, and so he sort of like guided me into like picking the right instrument. So the thing is, usually, like when you buy saxophones, are not cheap. Even second-hand ones can be like 300 to $500, which is definitely like not very, like expensive for a starting instrument. But
Yeah.
like he was like, you should definitely get one of these refurbished old like second-hand uh, like American horns, because they just last. They're built to last. So yeah, through him, I picked up something off of eBay, and let me tell you, picking the saxophone up from the post office here, that was one of the most exciting days of my life. Like I was waiting, and I was like, this was the thing that I felt would give me purpose at that phase in my life. So yeah, it just pretty much consumed the next 2 to 3 years. I was just like practicing. You're horrible when you start out playing. Like it's unbearable to listen to somebody when they start out playing a woodwind or a brass or any wind instrument, because it's more squawking and squeaking than actual like notes. But I really, I'm super grateful for my family, my friends, for putting up with all of that. I would take that horn everywhere with me. I just go to my friends' houses and say, "Hey, let me play for you," and they'd stare at me like, "Bro, are you ready to start playing yet?" But yeah, I'm really like glad that my family and friends supported me through that, because I think that was where I decided that I, at some capacity, I would need to have an outlet for musical expression throughout my life. Like it's, yeah, it it just it really is like therapeutic and something that I look forward to. So I was like, there's let's not have any doubts about this. We should do this in some form or the other. But as things happen, you get into work, and work starts becoming a little more hectic, and this got pushed to the back burner again. I played a couple of gigs, but ultimately it wasn't something that I was able to like spend a lot of time on. And I was still, it was not like I was away from the music scene. We were still going for like live music performances and other gigs and stuff. But I think it was in 2017 or 2018. A bunch of friends and I had gone to this music festival called Echoes of Earth,
Okay.
and it's in Bangalore. It's like in this foresty area of Bangalore, like a little in the outskirts of the city. And yeah, it was beautiful. It was a really nice festival. I think I saw a couple of the like jazz funk artists that I wanted to see over there, and it was a real treat. But what I was really like the turning point for me in terms of exploring the electronic scene was that I watched my first underground, or you can underground, used lightly, but my first electronic act. I think it was this duo called Fur Coat, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it was. Like up till that point, you could say that I was regrettably a snob. Like, I'd say, oh, if it's music, it has to be made by instruments, and how can you stand in front of a computer and press buttons and call yourself a musician? But I don't know, like all of these biases just from that point onwards, they almost just completely disappeared. And I've seen like a couple of good takes that other electronic musicians have made where they say that what is the point of being a purist? Are you saying that you need to have a certain amount of institutionalized like education before you can call yourself a creative? No, that's rubbish.
Mm.
Then you should be able to, even if you know like three notes on a keyboard and you're just making a loop with those three notes, why shouldn't you call yourself somebody that enjoys expressing themselves through music? So just like powerful words from a few of the people that I really follow. And yeah, I guess that was pretty much my entry into the scene. Going back from that first gig, I slowly started developing a taste of for a certain kinds of music that I felt I wasn't hearing as much, considering that I was living in Chennai. And yeah, one of like it started off with taking like creating Spotify playlists and getting recommendations from my friends, to finally taking the plunge and buying myself one of these little DJ controllers. That's the little box which you see with the two platters and like the knobs in the center. So that just allows you to like basically do like but basically DJ. So buying from the time I bought that, which was about 2020, yeah,
Okay.
just around the pandemic, I think it's been just, yeah, from house parties to private parties to like now gigs, which are happening relatively frequently. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's amazing that you've kind of found your own path in this, right?
Hmm.
Um, which is really cool. But something I have to ask, very ignorant question of me, but
Okay.
what does a DJ really do?
Yeah.
Because no, really, because I mean, I know I'm extremely clueless, and I know so many people who are and will just assume whatever. I do not want to be one of those people who just assume like what it is that a DJ does. So how would you explain it to someone who has no clue?
So what a DJ does is basically stand on the stage, hit play on a 1 hour long track, and just continues to like pump their fists in the air and tries to get the crowd going. But no, I'm kidding. That's definitely not only what a DJ does.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's this, right? Like, I mean, I used the term mixing a little earlier, and that's pretty much what we're trying to do. So you have song like in the most bare bones setup, you have two songs: song A, which is playing currently, and song B, which you want to bring in the sense like have like you. I'm sure you heard the word transition and stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
you transition in this context, obviously. So
Mm.
basically, that's it. So let's say that you have gotten a request from some promoter to do this gig. I'll just give you I'll work backwards so that we can get an idea of what exactly how you'd approach this thing. So you find out that it's let's say a deep house event. So you know that people are coming there expecting us. Okay, let's just say commercial or Bollywood. You know that people are coming there expecting a certain kind of music. So
Right.
you start I mean, unless if you already are really well versed in this particular genre or like field, then you'll have a lot of things to a huge repertoire to pull from. But if you aren't, if you're still trying to build up like a base in this particular genre, you'd go about like looking for inspiration for songs. You would in your mind like categorize them according to intensity, because you don't want to start off with something that's super fast pace in the beginning and then drop it down to slow. Usually, like intensity progresses, ascends as the duration of the set goes on. So basically, it's this: you select your song, you plan a rough order in which you'd like to play these tracks, and the main thing which DJs do, is beat matching. So that is, you basically make the tracks play at the same speed and align them in such a way that the kick drums, or like uh, basically like the main beats of each bar, the 1 2 3 4, you make sure that it's not 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 4. It's both, like they both, the ones go together, both the twos go together, threes and fours. I mean, different styles of music have different techniques to beat match to make it sound pleasant. But that's basically it. Like, you bring in the next, you have your song A which is playing, you decide what song B you want to bring in. You, before you play it to the audience, you use your headphones to make sure that everything is aligned, the tempo is matching, the grid, the beats are also matching, and then you slowly bring it up at a point that you deem to be like a nice transition. Have That'll have a nice transition, and then you have like slightly more. Like other styles of music lend themselves well to things like blending, where you have, let's say, like the highs, the vocals from one song, and the melody and rhythm section from another song, so it'll sound like a new song, familiar, but at the same time it'll be your own spin. That's where you'll see like these DJ mashups and stuff, where it's really popular in hip hop and commercial, and
Mm-hmm.
but where they will sort of like take 2 to 3 songs and squeeze them into like a 2 minute like segment and just really play around with them, and it's cool, it's really cool. uh, but yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's what we do when we're standing behind the decks and turning those knobs.
Yeah, see that you make it sound intelligent because I don't think anyone else would, because I feel like everyone's so used to kind of breaking down things to like such bare basics that it
Hmm.
just sounds extremely simple, which
Yeah.
is why, it's good to get this sort of insight from someone who actually does it. So
Yeah.
you're like, oh, so that's what's going on.
Yeah.
So, no, but okay, but then I have to ask, and this is my own like personal like doubt, what is
Mhm.
turntabling? Because I've heard this term also,
Okay.
and I'm just very clueless as to what it is.
So turntabling, I mean, I'm assuming it. We're speaking about turntables, which are these
Sorry.
old. No, no, but turntabling is, I'm guessing, the art of playing on turntables. You could say that as well. But yeah, turntables refer to these vinyl players. Like, remember the old record gramophones and stuff like that, where you have the needle and the big 12-inch vinyl like
Yeah.
disc. So basically, before we had digital music, it was all on analog, right? Like,
Yeah.
we had vinyls, and then we had
Mhm.
cassettes, and then we moved to CDs and stuff. So
Right.
DJs existed back in the vinyl days as well, and that's where you might have heard all of these. I'm sure you've heard like like when you think about a DJ, you think about them scratching this disc, and there's like wick 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 kind of weird sound like that. So vinyl turntabling is a style of DJing which uses vinyls running on a spinning platter, which is called a turntable. It's
Oh,
way harder than DJing with a digital, like a software, or like a digital player, like what you find in clubs, because there's so many like manual inconsistencies that exist simply just because of the engineering of it. Like, the platter will not spin perfectly, like consistently. There's no digital readouts, no tempo. Like, you don't get to see like the tempo. You don't get to see where the beats are, whereas you get to see have a you have a visual representation of all these things in a digital system. So when when you're a turntablist, you rely a lot on your ear. You basically have to be very tuned into how these songs sound, because you really don't have a visual system to uh, fall back on, as
right.
modern DJs do. So yeah, it's the old style of DJing, turntabling.
Oh, that's really interesting to know. Oh, thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
But yeah, then what is your process like when it comes to DJing? How do you approach, say, creating tunes or like a playlist or, just playing at a gig? And do you like, practice every day? What are the nitty gritties of just being in this space?
So I started out learning from a good friend of mine. His name is Siddharth Raheja. So he's been in the scene for quite a while, and I would say that, like, the methods that your teacher passes on to you, they sort of, like, at least at the starting point, they set your framework for learning. So basically, what I learned from him was, the technicalities behind beat matching and stuff like that. Those things, and I didn't mention this earlier, those things are now, they can be completely bypassed by software. There is this little button, which is the woe of many DJs and many, like, purists, which is called, it's called the sync button, where basically if you just press sync, both decks will be perfectly matched. I mean, as far as the software can understand. So it really, like, skips a lot of the hassle of having to beat match manually. But again, I'm just digressing. But what Raheja had told me back in the when I started was, see, like, you don't have to obsess over, like, manual beat matching and stuff now. What you should really do is develop your ear and build a huge repertoire, or, like, just amass a big collection of different styles of music, because you will have to learn how to play for an event, and not just the event, like, so you have, and usually it's an order of seniority or popularity, but there will be DJs that open the night, there will be DJs that play in the middle, and there is always the headliner, that is the main person that the event is structured around. And yeah, I'm talking about, like, club gigs and stuff. So
Yeah.
depend first, like, when you get the uh, details from a promoter, you would first judge the tone of the event. uh, you would also see the slot you're playing in. Let's say that you're given an early slot. You would not want to, like, ramp up the intensity so high that the subsequent DJs that play after you have to again bring it down and basically, reestablish, like, a sort of, like, connection with the crowd. Uh, Another thing to remember is, like, if you're playing, like, right before a popular, like, a named artist, somebody who people like, the headliner, and that guy has a lot of in like tracks that they've made, you will you should probably not play their tracks, because it's like, imagine if you're at a I don't know, like, a writers convention, and right before introducing the chief guest, you just basically dictate, like, their most popular works, like, end to end, and then the chief guest is going to be like, bro, that's what I'm supposed to do, why are you doing that? So yeah, judge the tone of the event, find out the slot you're playing, so appropriately scale your intensity. And another thing is, like, keep your eyes and ears out for new music, like, like, I think the thing which I recommend doing every day, and what I have been doing consistently for a while now, is making sure that when I find a sound or artist that I like, I save it, document that stuff. And I find that YouTube is very, very easy for this. YouTube Music. uh, so keep building your music collection as whenever you're just, like, browsing whatever. And yeah, I guess I lay out, like, a bit of a skeleton before I go for my for any show. Like, this is how I'd like to start. I'd like to ramp up the intensity at this point. I'd like to have a couple of tempo shifts, and yeah, this is where it would peak and then subsequently taper off. So there's a bit of, like, I would just say, like, wireframing, but no real, like, there's no, like, solid blueprints to go about this.
Hmm. That's interesting. So I guess it's very intuitive also and based on experience is my assumption then.
Definitely, like, you can learn your way out of a lot of uh, beginner mistakes just using, like, your experience and intuition, because it's got a the entry barrier is not that high. uh,
Right.
it in terms of skill, at least. uh,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, you can, the more you do it, there's a good chance that you won't be stuck in any major, like, pitfalls.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really fascinating to know. But then, today I don't know, at least I've been seeing this that suddenly like a lot of people have been obviously pursuing a lot more um, creative avenues. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, music itself, I mean, initially, I guess it was more of, I guess, yeah, either singing, songwriting,
Mm.
being in a band, and now I think DJing is the new kind of, well, I don't want to say new, but it is, I think, definitely a lot more prominent now. So what is your perspective or take on the whole DJ scene in India today, and even just the independent music space?
Uh, so I mean, first of all, like I'd like to just put this out there. In India, like we still sort of really hype the really big electronic artists. For example, I'll just like throw
Okay.
some names. Like there's this really popular DJ producer called Solomun, and he's going to be playing at a festival in India towards the end of this year. You have other like Nina Kravitz and Emily Lenz, and basically like big names in the electronic music scene. And yes, these people are great. But what I do want to say, and like what I think that a lot of uh, people should like uh, just sort of like understand, is that we have great DJs and like great like tastemakers and selectors in India, and it while using popularity as a scale to measure how good a DJ is, I just think it doesn't hold up, because
Mm-hmm.
like, and to expand upon the whole DJ scene in India, uh, you need to a lot of you coming up in the scene involves you putting yourself out there. You make the connections yourself. It's not like, okay, my dad is a DJ, so I'll also be a DJ, or like, or anything. There's very little in the way of capitalizing on your reputation or brand. Yes, if you are a popular like musician, like if you are part of a very big indie band or like some rock or a metal band or something, and you suddenly get into DJing, there will be a certain bit of carryover. But for the most part, you just got to like slowly build your name up. You have to get in touch with people. You have to be willing to put your body. I mean, if you're straight edge, then great. But for DJs and other weekend warriors that are out drinking a couple of times a week, man, you put your. I personally, it's just a bit much for me. But you just end up like just, yeah, putting your body through a rough time a couple of times a week. And yeah, over time you make sure you make some good connections, people who are maybe club managers, or they're planning to start a new like IP or a festival or something like that. Put yourself in these people's radars, and yeah, eventually you'll get a chance. And I think that seeing these big time popular DJs as the end goal is, yeah, it's a little daunting, because yeah, they're like
Right.
one astronomically small odds. There's very little chance
Hmm.
that most of us are going to ever get to that level. But I guess for me and a lot of people, this is something that we do to keep ourselves satisfied and happy, rather than to put you know like like put food on our plate. I mean,
Right.
at least I feel that there are a lot of people that still work another job and
Right.
do this on the side. And in with regards to that, there are certain styles of music which are more popular. Like for example, in India, even South India, the DJs that can actually really make a good like be compensated really well for their work are wedding DJs, specifically like
Okay.
Bollywood and stuff like that. And while it might not be your cup of tea, or I don't, I'm just assuming here, but yeah, it's just that if you're going purely by numbers, Bollywood wedding commercial DJs and stuff would probably be making a killing. And you needn't even be as you you really don't need as much of a, I mean, at the risk of sounding like dismissive of their craft, Like I think there's little less nuance because with commercial at least you're playing Billboard top hundreds and stuff like that, and you're
Right.
playing stuff that audiences know and they want to hear and they love. So it makes it a little easier. But again, there's
Right.
skill. Like commercial mixing, usually like there's a lot more. There's a different kind of technicality involved. I was mainly speaking towards the song selection. Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be like a just a bit of a snapshot of the Indian DJ scene. And you also asked about independent music, if I'm not.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to like see, at least in Chennai, over the past couple of weeks and months, there have been quite a few indie acts that have been coming up. Like like psychedelic rock, punk, metal had its like heyday, at least in South India, Chennai, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But right now, there's a and you probably have seen like these videos from this Covelong festival. It was crazy, like the
Yeah.
response that a lot of these new upcoming artists have gotten. It's really impressive. So it's on the rise, I would say. I think 2 years of being locked in our houses and interacting with people through Zoom have has sort of like reinvigorated us. Said yes, bring us the music. We want to go out for a gig now.
Yeah, no, that's true. But it's just kind of great also to see people kind of pursue other interests,
Yeah,
which
for
I
sure.
don't know if it was, yeah, I don't know if it was happening as much before. So I think that's a pretty cool change, actually. Um, but also, okay, so before moving on to the next section of this interview, I'm not sure if you answered this, but how did you come up with the name of Dr. Maniac?
Oh, that.
Yeah.
I've gotten multiple origin stories, none my own, but some of them include that you also so I come from like a family where pretty much everyone's a doctor. Both my brothers, my cousin, my uncle, my grandma, my grandpa, bunch of just doctors everywhere, and they were like, "Oh, Macha, his whole family is they're filled with doctors," so he also just wanted to put a doctor in his name. And I mean, that's one of the funnier ones. But no, really, I think it was in sixth standard where was, like me and my brothers, like I was the eldest at home. So I was like, yes, okay, I met a couple of friends, and you know what? People are like chatting on email through like MSN Messenger. So I came to like came back home, and I was like telling my uncle, you have to let us create email IDs. You have to let us create email IDs. So Dr. Maniac was an email ID, like it was Dr. Maniac at x.com. And that was my first email ID. And I don't know where I came up with it. I just thought like this whole idea of being like some maniacal scientist type character was appealing at that point. And yeah, that's just stuck. It's usually my username in a lot of things. I don't know if that's too much information, but uh, I just like have kept it. And before I started DJing, I was floating about a couple of other ideas, but I guess like I just went with this because that was my Insta handle as well. So yeah,
Hmm, that's interesting. Because I was wondering, because I know it's a great play on your name, but
yeah,
I really was wondering how you came up with the name.
yeah,
But yeah, kind of moving on. So you did engineering.
yes,
You studied mechanical engineering,
yeah,
and yes, you worked in IT and then went into machine learning.
yeah,
What has your engineering journey been like? And the reason I'm asking this is because I feel like there's so many people in India who do engineering. A lot of people don't really end up liking what they're doing and somehow end up moving into other avenues. There are actually, I don't know as many engineers who have stuck to engineering, at least from circles I've met and moved around in. But I know you're someone who has kind of stuck to it, and I'm assuming you do enjoy doing what you're doing and you
yeah,
do enjoy the space.
yeah.
So, what has your journey of engineering been like?
So I think mine, and as you pointed out, like a lot of people, they sort of just finish 12th and just go and join engineering. I mean, it's not even they go and join, it's like their parents would be like, okay, you're done, science group, okay, come, you're this engineering, IT engineering, mechanical engineering. I think that in India, at least, it's very different from, I would say, the West or maybe even other Eastern countries, where
Mm-hmm.
your college, your undergrad is basically extended school. Uh,
Right.
you don't go in with the same level of uh, typically you don't go in with the same level of personal motivation that a kid who is writing his SATs and has to, you know, uh, zero in on his or her dream field. For a lot of
Right.
people, at least this is my observation, the uh, your bachelor's in India is usually like sort of like a test bed, and you're hoping that with the field that you've chosen, you're given a wide enough berth so as to, at the very least, not drown in a competitive job market. It might be as simple as, okay, I joined engineering simply because I like the scientific and structured way of thinking that engineering inculcates, or I've joined law because I like the critical thinking aspects of it. And yeah, I mean, like, there are people who switch disciplines multiple times, and a lot of them just land up back in engineering. But for me, doing mechanical was fun. Like, I had a really great time in college. I wasn't too serious about my academics, but at the same time, it was like my ears were open. Like, I was paying attention. I really enjoy like the academic approach and the rigor that like scientists and people and other like prominent academicians bring to their work. The experimental procedures, the trials, repetition, collating results. I've just found these things fascinating. So maybe that was what stuck with me. And right after graduating, I just got into software, and it was interesting for me because I also worked like in a customer client facing role, where I could sort of see the bridge between, okay, what we're building in the back and what we're serving up to the clients. And
Right.
I guess that was enough to keep me interested. But it was only around 2018 where I said, okay, I'm gonna like have to play my hand right now. uh, I don't want to be too uh, be in too much doubt about what I would like to spend the next 20, 50, I don't know, 10, 15 years of my life. So let me take a gamble. Let me like look up popular, upcoming, emerging technological trends. And I think that was when I stumbled onto like, I was developing primarily in Java back then, but that was when the buzz with Python was just starting. And I'm sure you also seen like Python class, this, that, and
Yeah.
there's data science tutorials, Excel spreadsheet, whatever. So there was a lot of that buzz was it was yeah just about starting, and I was like, okay, let me. I by this time left my old company, and I was like, okay, let me try educating myself a bit on these technologies. And it was I did a bunch of courses on Coursera, Udemy, and things like that. But it was really my granddad, I think, back in December of 2018, who put me onto the, like, he was going through the newspaper and he found this ad from a company based in out of IIT Madras, run by Madras computer science professors, and they were launching a course in deep learning. So deep learning is, it's almost synonymous with artificial intelligence as we know it today. So think about neural networks and things of the sort. That is what we would say called deep learning. So there was this course, and it was created by these professors, and it was in Chennai. And I thought, okay, I'm still not gonna play the job market yet, so why not take this? And that's when I started this course. It was by this company, One Fourth Labs, and
Okay.
uh, going through the course, there were contests and other little assignments and stuff like that, and I was doing decently well in those. And I just thought I'd pay my pay the professors a visit, because there was a meeting that I had to go to at IIT Madras. So I was like, okay, let me just go drop in and say hi. And I went and met both of them, and like a week or so later, after a few more exchanges in between, like, yeah, they just decided to they offered me a job with them as a machine learning engineer. And yeah, 2 years later, after working with them, after, I mean, really seeing the level of rigor and consistency that they bring to their work, I'm pretty convinced that I would like to spend a good part of the next decade at least in this field.
Hmm. That's pretty cool that, you've honestly found something you really like doing and you're enjoying it and you really see like a future for yourself in this space. Because there are a lot of people I know who kind of just end up taking science because they don't know what else to do and then
As
end
did
up
I.
doing. I
As
mean, okay, like, okay, I didn't want to bring this up, but Manik in 10th standard thought science was the ultimate option for anyone and everyone to take. Because I clearly remember the day we had to submit which streams we wanted to take for like 11th and 12th. And there were a group of us, and Manik was asking everyone, "What are you taking? What are you taking?" And I said, "Commerce, but why? Oh my God, you're taking arts. Why? You can do so much more better."
Oh, I remember said that. I remember saying that. I didn't say you can do better. I probably would have made a like a stanky face or like "Ugh," something like that. But guys,
No,
like,
you said this to Dia. I very clearly remember Dia was like she's taking arts, and you were like, "But why? You're good at science. You can take science."
okay, yeah, I guess that was like in hindsight, I would not. I do definitely don't hold that opinion.
But no, but it really is cool that you really do enjoy engineering and you're kind of doing it for the right reasons. Even if you may have just taken it for whatever reasons, after
Yeah,
10th grade. Because a lot of people unfortunately don't enjoy it and they're either kind of
no.
stuck in this loop of doing something they don't like and it just affects them in so many other ways, and that's not a really
Oh,
nice way of living your life.
I have seen some really bad cases of engineering, like literally traumatizing people away from like any form of a lot of like analytical kind of work. Like the moment they see numbers and equations, or I mean, it needed even be that big. Like you just see a random formula, you're like, bro, I don't want to do all this engineering stuff. It's not even the fault of the field itself. I think that
Right.
you go there thinking it's going to be a be all end all be all solution, and I just said that ulta be all end all. Uh, but it's really not like it's basically extended school, and it's not the one stop destination that everyone's expecting. So yeah, and when you trip up on math, when you trip up on like thermodynamics, and I'm sure other streams have their painful subjects, it becomes hard to recover, and reestablishing that interest is not something that a lot of people do. I would could have just as easily said, screw engineering. Like I don't want to do this. I'm going to get into sales or marketing or something like that. But
Right. Yeah, but no, more power to you. It's amazing that you are doing things that you love doing. But having said that, is there something you've learned from engineering that you apply to music, or something you've learned from music that you apply to engineering?
so I think like less to the creative aspect of music.
Mm-hmm.
So in that, I feel like it should be unbridled creativity, as in if you feel something, find a way to express it.
Right,
But with creativity, and I'm sure like you, maybe Indra, Ashna, anyone who's put that hours in to like try to better themselves at a craft, you are way more. I mean, a person becomes way more adept at expressing the nuances of what they feel, the more skilled they are in the craft that they pursue. As a
right,
painter, you simply can express thousands of like more sentiments once you've taken the time to learn these techniques and tools which allow you to do so. As a writer, you read your like inspiring authors and their works. You see how they whatever segment different ideas, how they compartmentalize interesting pockets of information, and you become better. And just like with music, while electronic music really does make things a little easier, in general there is a lot of like practice, or as you would say in the uh, jazz community, shedding. So shedding means like you just go and you sit. It's basically a term which they used back in the olden days, where you'd say, "I need to head out to the woodshed." So the woodshed is refer- uh, to refer to like a studio or like a practice room where they're just sitting with their tools, with their notes and everything, and just hammering away, repeating repetitive motions until they become better technically. So I think with engineering or or other scientific fields where you would have to, where you've gone through the whole process of laying out constraints, tr- uh, running multiple trials, collating the results, and then uh, coming up with you know c- coming up with like your best, most optimal strategy to improve. The same thing can be applied here to music, to, at least especially to the act of practicing. Lay out a routine, understand what you are first, like critically analyze yourself, understand like where you need work. Certain people are very mechanically sound, but they might not be as good in terms of like creating their own ideas. They'd be able to like play Flight of the Bumblebee like note perfect, but when you ask them to just solo over like just a 4 chord progression, they might get stuck. And that's
Right.
really not saying that they're less of a musician, or it's just that they prioritize different things in their practice. So what I would say that from engineering is, like the learnings you could get from engineering would be to zoom out. In the moment, it seems like what you're working on is the most important thing, but you might realize that it just isn't, and you might have other avenues uh, that you can work on, which will probably yield better in result for the time you've spent. So zoom out, see, critically analyze yourself. For example, for me, I cannot read sheet music. It's the bane of anyone who's trying to play like jazz or classical or anything like that. And I'm also like a little, like, have a bit of a short attention span. So again, I this is just a rudimentary critical analysis of myself, but I would say that engineering has taught me to do that. Don't be afraid to judge yourself at that moment, because all you're doing is just collecting facts. With those facts, try to find a structure that you can do it, that you can like stick to sustainably, and which will also be moderately efficient in getting you like in improving yourself in this craft.
No, that's a very fair. I think what you said makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I completely relate to the not being able to read sheet music thing because I suffer with it during my music
Ah,
classes. But yeah, we're kind of now coming to the end of this interview, and we always end with these last two questions.
for sure.
So for the first one is what are your creative aspirations? Doesn't just have to be creative, but what are your aspirations, and what are you looking forward to in the near or even distant future?
Well, I'm really looking forward, as we spoke a little bit prior to the interview, but I'm really looking forward to my move to the UK. So I have spent the last around last year, enrolled in another course based out of the US, uh, and now I'm heading to the UK to like just get my master's from like a university over there. So I'm pretty excited for this change. Uh, I really enjoy I'm like a big fan of the UK underground music scene. Like I think they just have the best music, and there was a point where I had to decide between like moving to the US or continuing the US degree online and heading to the UK. And I didn't tell my parents this, but one of the strongest pulls for me to do this double degree thing was simply the UK underground music scene. So to speak towards my creative aspirations, I just want to keep a stream of creativity, no matter how small, going. Like just I want it to persist. Uh, uh, Whether it's just like a couple of gigs a month, or maybe like I don't know, some other kind of. So I do also have this hybrid instrumentals with electronics, like programmed beats and melodies kind of idea that I'm floating around. Like I basically want to combine
the instruments that I know, along with a bit of the music production that I know, and get some a live act of sorts going on. But
Okay.
again, that's been gestating for a while. I'm yet to like create like any substantial work as part of that project. But that is something that I feel that when I go there, I might have the time to like shift things about, get working on this a bit. But for now, go to the UK, try to meet some interesting people, find a couple of clubs and venues that are looking to like, well, would be okay to like have me play, and yeah, just continue to do what I've been doing here until it takes me somewhere else. We'll see.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. It sounds really exciting. Also, what are you doing your master's in?
So I'm doing my MS in computer science from Georgia Tech in the US. That's the one I'm doing online. And I'm doing going to be doing my MSc in IoT, Internet of Things, from
Okay.
the University of Southampton.
Oh, that's really cool, Manik. All the best to you.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
yeah, last question. What is a piece of, advice or learning you'd like to share with people? It can be creative, professional, personal, just something you've, experienced in life and you wish more people were aware of.
So one piece of advice that I would like to, I mean, I'm not a living embodiment of this, but I've seen it work. It's happened on multiple occasions for me, and it references James Clear's famous book, Atomic Habits. And like I'll start with a quote, and the quote is: "Success is a product of daily habits and not once in a lifetime kind of transformations. Good habits make time your ally, and bad habits make time your enemy." So what I wanted to like allude to in this was, you do something like a tiny bit of something, like let's say, okay, you want to pick up the habit of reading, or you want to just become better at your instrument, or you want to be able to uh beat match manually way better, or anything really. What if you spend even 5 minutes of focused effort spent on that every day is orders of magnitude better than doing nothing every day. Like, just look at how small that difference is, like 0 minutes versus 5 minutes. But then there's a really interesting graph, which I'm sure if you just Google the 1% better every day, you can see that graph. It's super thing. Like 1% improvement every day versus 1% decline. And the endpoints of these two curves is just, it really shows how much this effort, tiny amounts of effort, really compound to make significant changes over time. So uh, with people looking to pursue creative fields, if you want to learn the guitar, if you want to learn how to sing, just do a certain small, like set aside an amount which doesn't seem like too much of mental effort for you to commit to. Like, if you say like, I'm going to start with an hour a day, chances are most people are going to fail. An hour of focused practice on anything is a lot. Like, usually, like, your mind will, like, even with the it could be a mind, it could be a body, whatever it might be. Set yourself like an achievable amount of time that you can repeat every day. It can even be 15, 5, 10, 15 minutes, but make sure that's part of your routine. And over time, you'll see yourself being like, your capacity to work like improve. You'll be able to spend 15 minutes without feeling fatigued, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour. And when you hit that 1 hour of focused effort kind of thing every day, you will really be able to see changes over time. And also, I mean, yeah, I've been saying graphs and compare this curve versus that curve, and it sounds like super impersonal and, like, almost robotic. But one real point I want to make is, man, like, you don't have to compare yourself with anybody. Like, it's good to get a reference. Okay, this is what the scene is like. This is what it means to be DJ. But to judge yourself and your worth based on the performance of another person who you really don't have I mean, it's very unlikely that you'll be fully clued in on what this person is doing with their time. to simply say, okay, they are successful on Twitter, on Instagram, they have like robust understanding of different fields. So why am I not there yet? I think that question does a lot more damage than help. So track yourself against yourself. If you can devise a method to see how far you've come in given any given amount of time, use that as a metric. You don't need to say, okay, I'm not as successful as this personality or this other guy who started at the same time as me. It could be like your work, it could be your creative avenues. Don't compare yourself with other people. Just do that 1%, and in a year's time you won't be able to recognize where you stood like back then.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice to share. And I completely agree. I don't think you should compare yourself to anyone else. Your journey is your journey. And I think only you know, right, what your growth is going to be like and how much you're going to progress. So, yeah, completely agree. Thank you so much for being here, Manik. It was really lovely talking to you after so long.
Yeah, it's
This is an
great to
interesting
hear.
way to catch up, but no,
Yeah,
really,
for sure.
no, but really, thank you so much for being here. It was really insightful to just, hear about your journey and your take on things. Thank you so much for taking out the time to do this.
No
And I really hope
worries.
you had fun and this was comfortable for
Oh
you.
yeah, super nice. I This is the first time I've done like a long format like interview of sorts, and like I don't like to go in unprepared. I mean, even though I might have seemed unprepared, I did do like a bit of like I set about a skeleton of ideas that I'd wanted to speak about and things, and it was a treat. Like, let me just tell you that, like, it to put like putting my what I felt into some form of structure, at least I feel, really helps me to understand what I'm doing better. I mean, I think it was Richard Feynman who said that, the best way to learn something is to teach it to another person. I'm not saying that I'm teaching you anything, no, but like, at least for me, like repeating things which I feel like I just internalized, like repeating them to another person sort of helps me understand myself better. And for that, I'm grateful for you to like for allowing me to do this. So thank you, Sangeeta.
So that was my conversation with Maniak Vennimalai. I really enjoyed talking to him and learned a lot about what DJing entails. Closing this episode with an excerpt from a sample beat made by Maniak. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week with a new guest and a new chronicle to share. Talk soon!